a lot of people think remote viewing is simply, you know, seeing through the eyes, but viewing is actually multisensory. It's
Hmm.
being in a different time and space and sensing and feeling what's happening in that time and space. I noticed when I was working with people remotely that they would pull out maps that literally look like treasure maps and they'll unroll them in front of me. And it looks like the stars, it looks like the cosmos. And so, going to the connection with dragons. So I connect specifically with the rainbow dragons in this experience and with their frequency that helps me open up a passage to travel through these maps. So a lot of people don't know how to navigate their hearts because really that's where this information is coming from.
So, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today on KarmaHub. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
So, I met you not long ago, and I was fascinated by your story. I'm going to briefly just talk about your background. You've got so many things. I'm probably only going to scratch the surface, but I want to give people an idea of some of the amazing things that you do. Let me touch on just a couple things here. You're a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist, a diplomat in acupressure and natural therapies. You got certifications in Oriental medicine, studies in martial arts, ancestral healings, transformative alchemy, sound healing, light language, biofield energetics. You work with the land, plants, and dragons. I'm anxious to hear more about that and so much more. So, um, really happy to have you here with us today, and I look forward to walking down this path with you. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your healing journey? Um, I understand that it started with a head trauma years ago, and it took you down a very fascinating rabbit hole.
Yes, well, it is quite a long story. So it's kind of hard for me to even, go through a linear timeline because so much has changed. And it's been over 17 years since I experienced a traumatic brain injury in a car accident when I was 18 years old. And, still in high school. And at that point in time, I'll have to go back a little bit further to give you even more context for what was
Okay.
happening. So, when I was a kid, I was really sensitive and intuitive, and I actually grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, on a piece of land that was actually a home that was built on top of an Indian burial ground. So, as a kid, I could actually see the earthbound spirits on that land, and I
Oh,
was sensing and feeling a whole lot more than that. And it scared me a lot. And so I turned down my sensitivities and also just being a kid wanting to fit in, feeling overfeeling and
gotcha.
not
Right.
really having a place to speak about what I was experiencing or remembering. And so by the time I was 18 and I experienced this head trauma, it basically took off all of my filters. So I didn't have a way of yeah, I didn't have a way of turning those things off anymore, basically.
Right.
And it changed over time because the nature of head injury, as I've now learned from so many people because I ended up going down this rabbit hole of healing and then helping others with the things that I've learned. So I do specialize in helping people with sensitivities to energy, ADHD, neurodivergent, people who've experienced concussion, brain injury, central nervous system issues,
Wow.
trauma. They're all kind of interrelated. And so for me at that time, when I had the brain injury, it basically distorted all of my senses and my memory as well. So I had a very acute sensitivity in my hearing. It was like this little sound was like a bomb going off. And my vision was distorted. I had no sense of taste or smell or hunger. I forgot how to speak. I lost my language. I lost my memory from every moment moving forward after the car accident. And so,
Like your
as
short term memory or long term memory or both?
my short-term memory. So I could remember everything that happened prior to the car accident, but as time was going on, the duration of time that I was able to remember extended little by little.
I
And
see.
so it was for a long time being very much like a very dysfunctional autistic person. And basically perceiving reality on a split second by split second basis. So I had no sense of time or space. And at that time, within a week after the car accident, I started remembering my past lives, but not particular information about my past lives, but only the deaths. And so I would literally, it was like I was sitting there at home by myself in almost like a catatonic state, staring and experiencing one smush and stab and whatever death it was, like back to back to back for I don't know how long this lasted. And my like kind of sense of time and space was really distorted at that time. And so to the point where it was alienating, it was isolating, but it was also really disorienting because I had no idea what was going on and I was connecting to what was happening in different times and places that weren't connected to this current time and place. So,
Wow.
not just in past, but also possibilities of future timelines. So, I was kind of in this state where I was literally writing down these flashes of memories that were coming into my mind. And I wanted some kind of validation or sense that this wasn't all just made up in my head. And I just felt like I was going crazy.
So you said that you weren't able to really communicate very well with others. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't have short-term memory and your speech was you had issues there. Were you able to actually like think and make sense of stuff?
So, no, I wasn't. I was like basically perceiving everything on a split second basis. So, when somebody spoke to me, I would immediately forget the words that they spoke. And didn't have my own thoughts. So, as the words came into my mind, I would immediately forget them. So, my
Oh,
brain started compensating and creating spatial awareness instead. So that the way I would understand people is actually by looking at them. So I could see two people speaking from across a baseball stadium, and I would just see the way they move toward each other and the energies between them. And I knew exactly what they were talking about.
wow. Okay.
And these kind of different perceptions and compensations changed over time. So that was another part of navigating all these changes. Like I had instances where like half of my body would go numb, or I would start seeing just seeing the energies of people, seeing auras in different ways, hearing people's thoughts.
Okay.
That was interesting. And at this point, like I don't know. Sometimes I'll hear people's thoughts, and my relationship to telepathy and how that all works is totally different. But some people think really loud, especially if they're emotional. And at that time back then, that's kind of like when it would happen. And especially if somebody was like angry or had aggressive thoughts, it was just like, too much. I don't want to know that.
Yeah. So that went on for a couple years
Well, it
or
changed over
months.
time.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I said in the beginning, it was really isolating and disorienting. And I couldn't, at that point in time, I had other kind of neurological difficulties. I couldn't like walk in a straight line. I couldn't balance. I couldn't do yoga
Wow.
or anything athletic because it was just so dizzying. So I had like really bad chronic migraines. That was just like a stabbing pain in my head for, indefinitely. And so I went to neurologists. I got these reflex tests, and they said on a 100-point scale, you're at a 0.0001%. And so your prognosis is you could be better in a week, a month, a year, or never. Good luck. Here's a painkiller, which I refused to take.
Wow. So
Yeah.
what steps did you take? I mean, after hearing this information from, I guess, your doctors.
Well, so my immediate response was depression and finding some semblance of feeling okay. And so I basically turned to books and I would read as much as I could, even though I didn't remember a damn thing.
Hmm.
And I started learning Greek actually at the time. I was, for some reason, drawn to learning one word a day because I told myself if I could learn one word a day, at least I'm learning something. I'm picking something back up. Because at that time, like my memory was mush. But I had the memory of a goldfish and it was like recollective memory. So as people spoke, I was recollecting my words. And so I couldn't come up with them myself. And like somebody would say, I would ask somebody to pour me a cup of coffee and I forgot the word cup and I would have to describe it and say that thing that you pour liquid into. And it was things
Wow.
like that, people were constantly reminding me of these very simple words. And by that summer, my Ukrainian actually came back first because that's my first language. And it's kind of interesting how the brain just compensates and different things will turn back online. Sorry, I did not answer your question. I feel like
Oh no, I'm
it's interesting
fascinated by your
because
journey. Yeah.
I don't like talk about this very often anymore because it was such a long time ago. So it's like as I'm putting myself back in that time, it makes me feel a little wobbly energetically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I presume that because you went through this, you're able to, and some of the weirdness, time, space, um, that you were kind of, and I assume you're able to apply that to your modalities these days on some level. Is that right? I mean, did
Well,
it kind of unlock gifts within you? I mean, at a great expense, absolutely. But um,
oh, I would say at that time it was kind of like a Jedi training of magnitude. And I would
okay,
say,
yeah,
yeah, about 4 years
yeah.
into it, I had a day where I woke up and I lived an entire day and I didn't have to think about explaining myself to anyone or reintroducing myself to somebody who I forgot I met or talking about why I wasn't able to do whatever it was or I didn't have a headache or anything. And I realized I'm like, I think I'm actually healing. And it just hit me at the end of the day that I had one normal day and that was just the beginning of the healing. And so at that point, I was still living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to Marquette University and I actually studied journalism so I could learn how to speak to people again. And I used that opportunity to study holistic healing as much as I could. And I would find ways of interviewing people at yoga studios or people doing different meditation practices so I could learn about it myself. And that's really during that whole time finding meditation and zazen and nutrition is really what started my recovery, doing these simple things. And later on, after I moved to Denver, I met my teacher of acupressure and reflexology, and I was working at a Starbucks actually, and he came up to me and he said, "I can take away your migraine. Can you give me your hand?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So just by looking at me, he knew, and he put pressure on this point on my ring finger, and he used qigong and drained the heat from my head.
Wow.
So after that point, the
Wow.
very next day, I'm at his house. He's demonstrating how to move chi in the body, how to feel the pulses, how to read the energy. And I was like, what is this? I'd never been exposed to East Asian medicine before that, other than meditation. And yeah, I was hooked. It was like the next 3 years I ended up studying with him. And so I had full-time jobs during the day. And then I went to his house and worked one-on-one with his clients and learned how to read energy that way. So in the beginning, I wasn't actually connecting so much with people's physical energy that I could see or sense. But I think through that experience, it helped me really feel what was happening in people's bodies. And I mean, it's been such a long journey since then that I'm at a point that I can view people's energy fields at a distance. I can scan their fields. I can see where energies blockages are in what meridians and what organ. And I can use my light language and my voice and tuning forks as well to literally reorganize the cellular structure and ask that their natural healing ability activate. It's just evolved so much.
That's amazing. Wow.
And
Good
so
for you.
is my gifts. So like throughout the years, I've had just like one kind of consciousness opening experience after the next that has opened up more and more remembering for me. And kind of thankfully, because I feel like if you remember too much too soon or too fast, you can kind of go crazy. And that's kind of what happened with the very beginning with the car accident. It was like too much information, too open, too fast. And like I said, just going through this whole process now, it's been 17 years since that happened, has just been a Jedi training of magnitude. So I'm at a point where I love teaching others, I love supporting others and waking up their psychic abilities, and using their sensitivities as gifts, and empowering people to, turn their struggles and their trauma into purpose and meaning and ways of giving back.
It's wonderful. So when you tap into someone or see their energies, like, can you explain? I don't know if you'd be able to, but uh, are you able to somehow paint a picture of what you experience when you tap into someone's energy field? Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
what's it like from your perspective?
it's like I feel how it looks. It's like a spatial awareness. So I think maybe that's something that got opened up back then, but the way it's changed, and the way I've kind of developed it for myself, I'll basically, somebody doesn't have to be in the room with me. I can look at them, and it's almost like, well, visually, I'll see their bodies, but I'll feel and sense with all my senses. And so I could look, you know, it's almost like I'm not visually seeing it, but I'm sensing it spatially. And so I can feel like the density of what's there, but there's a picture in my mind, but it's not like a picture that you would see in like a visualization. It's just like a totally different sense. I really can't
Okay.
describe it. But I kind of have more of a spatial awareness of like what are the other energies in that field, what entities or beings or guides are with them. Sometimes I can perceive it, sometimes I can't. It depends on like the intention of the person and what I'm able to access, because everything I do is permission based. And so that's something that supports me and supports the other person. And it's something I've learned throughout the years because I don't want all that information, And I honor and I respect that everybody has their own evolutionary path and journey. So whatever they're ready for in that moment at that time, and I'm there to assist and they're called to seek my support. We set up the space, they have their intention, and whatever is meant to happen happens, and I can read it. But I can't force anything. And if I know something that I'm not supposed to share, I get very clear guidance that I'm not allowed to share it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand that sometimes it's a very fine line of what information is best to know, the highest and best for the person you're working with. Um, so what you do so many different modalities, you do, yeah. What are you most excited about these days?
I'm really excited about maps. So
Okay.
I work with heart maps, and this is something that I started remembering about 2 years ago. And I noticed when I was working with people remotely that they would pull out maps that literally look like treasure maps and they'll unroll them in front of me. And it looks like the stars, it looks like the cosmos. And so, going to the connection with dragons. So I connect specifically with the rainbow dragons in this experience. And with their frequency, that helps me open up a passage to travel through these maps. So a lot of people don't know how to navigate their hearts because really that's where this information is coming from.
Okay.
So that's why I call them heart maps. And we'll see the coordinates on the map and I'll ask how many there are and I'll see where we are and where they want to go. And once I establish that, I open up a rainbow dragon bridge and I put myself in a travel bubble and I ground it to this planet so I can come back. And they basically, in their timing, will step through this bridge or this gateway and then they start to feel and sense things. And there's like this kind of in between space, depending on where we're going and how time and space works in where they're traveling to, because sometimes People will travel to their childhood memories or to their mother's uterine space when their mother was pregnant. But sometimes they'll travel to other planets, other galaxies, past lives.
Hmm.
So the orientation and the nature of the map changes the time that it takes to get somewhere and how long it takes somebody to remember something. And so there's kind of this reorientation space. And like if we're traveling somewhere off planet, like the texture in the air and like the density will actually change. And so there are certain places I've traveled that are so far out there that like I know that if I stay there too long that my cells will start to disintegrate. And so I literally I get a time clock of like we can only stay here
Wow.
for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty intense stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean
Huh.
it's really, really amazing to see and witness somebody pick up whatever they left.
Yeah.
Sometimes when somebody experiences something traumatic, they will fracture and parts of themselves will hide or go to other places, that they've already been. But some of these
So I've
places
heard
are
that
very,
term a
very
couple
sneaky and
times.
hard to access. Yeah.
I've heard the term fracture. Like, is that like a shamanic term? Is that
I
used in?
I don't think I can use that term because I don't identify as a shaman
Okay.
or I'm not
Fair
like
enough.
shaman trained or something like that. I just am who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
But the what I mean by the word fracture is
Mhm.
that the soul, the soul has many aspects and many ways that we can relate to it. But as far as what is accessible here in the human experience, it's like a fracture is like when part of the energy body that would otherwise be kind of clicked into its place through the central channel and be locked into time, which my perception of time is when the central channel, some people call it the chakra system or the kundalini energy that moves through the spine, kind of connecting through the root, coming out the crown, connecting from above and below. When that's in alignment, that person is literally in time. And when it's not, it can be fractured. And that person, the way I look at it, it's like they have all these little fractures of timelines and they're in multiple times at once. So you see this a lot of times
Hmm.
with like people with like ADHD and they're experiencing like 20 television screens at once and all this information. It's because they're not all there in a single time. They're
Gotcha.
doing work in other timelines. And sometimes people do that intentionally, and that's one of their gifts. But, having
So
and using those
so
gifts
that's
and
my
functioning in
excuse.
the
I'm
world.
fractured. So
No, I mean, but I mean, I
that
wouldn't call yourself fractured. I wouldn't. But as far as
Okay.
like when somebody, goes through something traumatic and there's an essential part of themselves that, you know, they actually could really use in this human experience that's way out there, they go back to remember it. And I'll
Right.
say too, though, that, when people experience something traumatic, it can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be sexual. People put up barriers and protection around themselves because it hurt, around the heart. And
Right.
so when we're working through these maps through the heart space, it's like letting down those barriers and then inviting those aspects back in to let them know that they're safe. Because I'll tell
I
you,
see.
like 9 out of 10 times, that's where somebody's personal power is or where their voice is. Or, maybe it's their light language. Like I've seen people wake up all sorts of things, or maybe their psychic gifts turn back online, or
Hmm.
maybe they remember something from their childhood that they were really passionate about that they weren't allowed to do as a kid because it wasn't appropriate or it wasn't the right whatever, or their parent told them, stop doing that. That's silly. That's stupid. You want to,
Right.
act normal and blend in.
So
So
they
they
shut
shot it
down.
out somewhere. They shut it down.
Hmm.
And then they realize that they lost something that's really important to them. And when they can bring that back and anchor it back in, all of a sudden their inspiration turns back online, and they can create whatever it was that they left in that time.
So how long does something like that take? A treatment like that take?
Well, I wouldn't call it a treatment. I would just
Okay.
call it remembering.
Okay. Okay.
I like to kind of get out of the Western diagnostic terminology as much as I can. It depends on the person. Sometimes it can take minutes, sometimes it can take an hour, sometimes
Gotcha.
somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
It just depends on what they're accessing and like I've worked with a lot of really high functioning kind of maybe people with an autistic diagnosis or haven't been diagnosed, but they have trouble focusing and they're just really sensitive. And also people who are healers who have already really developed their skills, but they want to develop them even more. And those people work tremendously fast. And it's amazing because sometimes I'll get through even up to 5 maps in 1 hour. And it's like, all right, they're
Wow.
all totally different. They're in different places, different times. And we'll just open one up and zip through. And I just ask them questions like, what are you here to remember? And they know. And I'm like, where do you need to go? Go there now.
Hmm.
And we'll
Okay.
literally just, it's kind of like being in a video game or something
Well,
sometimes.
I want to back up just a little bit. You had mentioned dragons,
Uh huh.
and I'm sure that there's plenty of people that are listening to this or watching this that are curious, like I am. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Yeah, dragons. Tell me about dragons.
Yeah. So dragons are real.
Okay.
First off, they're multidimensional beings and they travel throughout time and space. And when somebody is receptive and open to receive their guidance or to remember their own dragon nature, if they're connecting with that, then all they have to do is ask and they will show up. And they
Hmm.
might show up, like in the outside world, you might start seeing dragons like on billboards or artwork or a license plate, like things show up in the physical in really kind of funny ways. Or some dragons will literally show themselves physically and you get to witness them even for a glimpse. Or
Wow.
they'll show up in the clouds, or the trees, or the mountain, or the river.
So I was working, actually, it was a little retreat that I was having, and I was working with someone along the waterfront. Um, Actually, it was great. We had this massage table right next to the water, and she was saying, there's dragons out in that water. I was like,
Hmm.
there are, and she, kind of gave me the whole spiel and started talking about it. She goes, when you give Reiki, she's talking to me. She's like, when you give Reiki, you can also call on the dragon, especially
Hmm.
here because you have the dragons out there on the water. And I
Hmm.
was like, okay. So, you know, so I started giving her Reiki and, for like a half hour or so. And then toward the end, like within just minutes of ending, I actually remembered what she said. So I started visualizing the dragons and,
Hmm.
brought in the dragon and had them in my own mind, at least, assist me with this treatment or the session that I had with this person. And when everything was all said and done, she looked at me. She says, "Oh, you brought in the dragon energy." I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I did. Can you tell me when I brought in the dragon energy?" She goes, "Yeah, it was right. It was like right at the very end." She said, "I could feel it." I was like, "Yeah, you're exactly right." That's when I started visualizing everything, and it was right at the very end. So it's fascinating, but that's the only other person that I've connected with that speaks of that, outside of like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff.
Hmm.
um but that's really neat. It's
Well,
really
we're
cool.
out there. I've met a lot of dragons, a lot of people who connect with the dragons. And when you connect with another dragon, you can see it in their eyes. There's a
Wow,
certain twinkle to somebody's eyes. But
that's
I can talk a
fantastic.
little bit more about the waters and the dragons because the dragons, they are, ancient beings, but they carry the original codes of this planet. So those of us who are connecting with the dragons are also, connecting with the healing waters here, which carry memory, the crystalline memory of the water. So everywhere you go on the planet, there are different waters that carry different information and minerals, of course. So you drink those waters, they have different healing properties, but they literally activate and resonate with your own crystals in your body.
Wow.
And so this is very inspiring and exciting to me. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains outside of Charlottesville, and there are dragon lines right here. So where there are mountains and mountain rivers, there are dragons. And that's why I'm here on this land to connect with that. But specifically, I'm actually creating a group starting next month. And this has been a guided process that I've been working on for a couple months now. And this is my first time sharing it with anybody. So,
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm basically creating through a world map. I'm mapping out 8 specific locations of water that we're going to be activating on through those specific water information. And so I'm going to be working with a group of people remotely to remote view the planet, and we're going to fly in to these different sources of water. They might be lakes, they might be waterfalls, they might be rivers. I haven't mapped them out yet, but that's what I'll be doing this next week is figuring out where are we going. So I'm going to pull up a map and we're going to be connecting with the frequency of these healing waters through sound, through toning, through tuning forks, however it wants to come through as information. And what I anticipate is that people are going to feel the activation in their physical bodies. So it might support people in waking up their psychic intuitive gifts. It might help them detox. It might help them purge old memories that are no longer useful, or it might help them actually reconnect to the land and the memory of that land from whenever they were there. There are kind of these hot spots or vortices all over the planet that a lot of people resonate with because they've actually been there before. People go on these pilgrimages to all these sacred lands, and on most of those places carry very special healing waters and information in those waters.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, good for you. That's
So
awesome.
I'm very excited about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm just like,
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about maps. We had um, spoke about the possibility of doing a little session.
yeah,
Is that something that you're still open to?
yeah, absolutely. If you're up to
Okay.
it.
What do I need to do?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a third field around the two of us to travel.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Okay.
do that with my light language. So I just would like to ask your permission to see you within this bubble and specifically for any intention you put into the field and the information that may come through in relationship to that intention.
Absolutely. You have my permission.
Thank you. Ho'oe tara u'ukea turu uru utuku tu undu utue terere ia ko o toro o to undue kiera ororo toru undue kia
During this
ta
session,
undeata.
although edited,
So just take a
I'll
breath
leave some segments in here to give you some
and drop
idea of
into
the
your
journey
heart
that Melanie
space.
takes me on. You will see that at the end that I'm really working hard to pull myself together after this very healing experience.
And just tune into what's arising in your heart space right now. What information is asking to be accessed by you in this moment? Actually, bringing through the dragon energies right now. So I'd like to hold your heart with my hand. There we go. Now we've got a full, vibrant map to work with. I'm seeing, okay, how many coordinates are there? There are 2 coordinates on this map. So I see where we are. Where are we going first? Show me. And then we're going here. Okay. So, um, I actually don't need a travel vessel for this one because I've been here before. So we're here. I'm going to open up a rainbow dragon bridge to navigate the first coordinate. Ayo uku utu utu tu utu eti ia ta uku etere iaro ororondo kutu ue tarororo uku ia tia ndia tia ndia tia. So I see that there's like a connecting passage between this coordinate and the next one. So I'm going to open up the second bridge. Kayu utu ukutu utu itiria ururundu kuia tiwia tu utu ndo tarara tara uke watianda. So we're going to start moving. There's kind of like a connecting, it almost looks like a waterway.
Oh, boy. That was a wild journey.
Yeah. I'm still disconnecting. So I leave with you
Okay.
what belongs to you. I take what is mine. And I'm going to close this third field. Disconnect from viewing. Disconnecting from all energy centers. Whew.
Wow. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. It's such a pleasure. It's so much fun.
Oh, man. Well, so I'm in a very different state right now.
Do you need some water or anything?
Yeah, I'll drink my little drink here. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that was really cool.
Every
So,
map is different.
okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely felt a lot of energy movement, and things were moving around in my chest and shifting downward and outward. And certainly I didn't understand it, but I was feeling it.
Yeah, you don't have to understand it. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's just a consciousness, intelligence, love, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
doing
That's
its
great.
work.
Let's see. So I have some notes over here. Let me get resituated while I'm
Yeah.
reorienting myself. Yeah, this is great. Um, oh, wow. Yeah, so you do. Well, um, uh, the sound healing, the light language. Yeah, the first time I met you, actually, I think the first thing I heard out of your mouth, we were at a meditation center, actually here at Realize Meditation, and you had a meditation to share, and you started it all off with light language. And yeah, and of course I was like, who is this girl? It's because it was fascinating. It was really, really cool because I immediately felt this shift downward, and I grounded, and from there you went into a meditation, and it was absolutely fantastic. And um yeah, so we chatted afterwards, and now we're here doing this thing. But yeah, so light language. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I noticed you were doing it, you know, during our session here.
Mm-hmm. Ayo ora andare re o kiwi anda tataroro iro kuma taroro indi ki indi tandarara indi ki indare ki wa o indi. That's pretty much the explanation I could give you in light language.
Okay, okay. Hmm.
It's my original language. It's an expression of my light body that comes from my multidimensional beingness, and everybody has their ability to connect to their own light language because we are all beings of light.
Hmm.
And some people choose not to, and it doesn't matter. It's all just another way of creating and expressing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So for me, I
Oh,
use it to create energy fields, to open them and dismantle them. And I use it also intuitively as a way of communicating information that can bypass the thinking mind and communicate multidimensionally without having to tell stories.
wow. That's pretty fantastic. Yeah, the first time I experienced light language a couple years back, and it was just a quick 15-minute session. It was kind of like a demonstration. I had a little one-on-one session, and it was profound. Like it I felt the energy just kind of shift, and when it was over, I had to help myself walk out of this room. I had grabbed onto the door jamb. I moved over to the other end of the hall, and I was leaning up against the wall. And again, it was like an open house, almost a demonstration of different practitioners.
Mm.
And I just remember being against this wall, completely wiped out, in a good way. I mean, it was pretty euphoric, but just a very different state. And people were coming up to me saying, what happened to you? Like, what's going on with you? And I just pointed across the hall. I was like, that dude over there does light language, and wow, it's something else. And yeah, that was actually Bill Sando, who we have here at Realize Meditation from time to time.
Cool.
And yeah, so it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And but I felt it immediately when you started it the other day.
Mhm.
A couple weeks back for the meditation, I just sank right in and went right into the meditation. It was a perfect state to be in.
Mm.
So very cool. Do you have any stories that you'd like to share? Like, are there any clients or people that you've worked with that have had just amazing transformations or breakthroughs or awarenesses? Are there any stories
Yeah.
kind of coming to mind that you might be able to share a little bit of?
Well, there are a lot of stories that come to mind, but out of client confidentiality, I would rather not
Okay,
share.
fair enough.
I could kind of give basic examples maybe of what the types of things that people remember. Um,
Yeah. I think that would work. If you
um,
give people kind of an idea of what might happen during a session.
yeah, like for one, people, um, let's see, let me think of definitely a lot of people opening up their psychic intuitive gifts, remembering information from their inner children about what they are here to create,
Hmm,
um, particularly when they're connecting to their life's passion. Um, you know,
nice.
I hear so many stories of like people who go through like corporate America and, they don't like their work or they know that they're here to do something more and they have this desire, but they don't know what it is or they feel lost, and then they remember these things again and it's igniting the heart space again. And that's really what it's all about. It's connecting back to what is the heart asking that person to do and where is their intuition guiding them. So yeah, I mean, as far as like on a physical level, I've seen a lot of people release pain and different forms of trauma and including ancestral trauma and pain that they've taken on for their families and beyond. That's a
Nice.
big one.
Hmm.
Really
Like
common,
ancestral
especially,
healing.
yeah, especially with healers or people who are like, kind of mediators, or they had to be the parent in the family or the mediator or the healer, or they took on some kind of energy out of, a desire to be loved or whatever it was, whatever they perceived love to be. And then it turns into these like kind of sacrificial dynamics. And then they learn later on that they can let go of it. And they tend to learn how to do the healing that they do through this learning experience. Um, that's common, but it's like that's kind of a general archetype, I guess. And then sometimes, if we're talking about going off planet and way out there stuff, on like the opposite spectrum of humaning and physical body stuff,
Right?
people meeting their soul families, different guides, remembering their planets or families of origin, remembering being aspects of the cosmos even before being in a being's body. Like some people's origins are really from the stars, so they might remember their essence being connected to the birth of a planet or a supernova or a sun, or being some aspect of creation itself.
Now, is this when you do that sort of work? Is this in any way related to uh, um, uh, remote viewing, remote sensing,
Mhm.
remote work? I mean, is it kind of one of the same,
It
or
is. So a lot of people think remote viewing is simply, you know, seeing through the eyes, but viewing is actually multisensory. It's
Mhm.
being in a different time and space and sensing and feeling what's happening in that time and space.
So when you tap into someone's energy, is that a form of remote viewing, or is that something different? Do you
I would say it is. Yeah.
Okay?
I mean, I'm using
So
clairvoyance because
it's a
I'm seeing
similar
things.
sensation.
Yeah, it's The same, yeah, I would say it is a form of remote viewing. And it just depends on the context and what I'm viewing, So if I'm, say, on a hike and I touch a tree and that tree wants to tell me everything that happened in that land, then I'll see like a kind of a movie in my mind's eye of what happened on that land and the different forms that happened there. So that's kind of one way of viewing. Or if I'm tapping into somebody's childhood home or something and they are retrieving a memory or something that they left when they were a kid, and reorganizing their orientation to whatever it was. And yeah, so I'm literally in that location with them, seeing spatially what's there, sensing the energies that are there. So I may pick up smells. I may notice spatially that there are certain objects in the room, but I have to put it into time. And that's what changes it completely. It has to be in the context of time. And it's like I'm working with somebody right now on identifying a lost body. And so we're working through potentially the idea is to work through a timeline. So it's going to be different, to see what's happening right now versus what may have happened, you know, whenever whatever happened.
Gotcha. Now,
Yeah.
is that something that you do from time to time, locate objects or people or bodies?
Um, well, I kind of help people remember more through the heart. I don't typically do that kind of work,
Hmm.
like lost objects.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical about the ability to find lost objects because I think sometimes objects will disappear and then come back on their own.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think when things are meant to be found, they find themselves.
Okay.
When it comes to like people finding like a lost diamond ring or a memento or something like that.
So, like the timing of it all is rather intentional.
Yeah. And there are times where I've helped people retrieve things and the things that they lost are not in the current time. So we had to go in a fold or a pocket of time and pull it back into this timeline and then they could find it again. I
Wow.
know stuff like this is real. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you lost your remote to your TV. It fell between the cracks of the couch, but it's now in another time. And so we have to put it back in time and then you can find it in your couch. Like, it's a really silly example, but it's possible.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
I know.
Yeah. That's hard to grasp.
Yeah.
Huh. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm looking over here at some of my notes, and you had mentioned something about Life Wave. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but I am kind of fascinated by it. It's like a patch that reflects some of your own light and therefore helps with uh, to regenerate stem cells. Is any of that I said correct?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Okay.
I work with a company called Lifee Wave that has a light therapy patch that they have a series of light therapy patches, but the one that is my favorite that I like to work with is called the X39,
Okay.
and it reflects the body's body heat, which is infrared light, back into the body in a specific wavelength of light that turns on a copper peptide. And that copper peptide turns on the stem cells. So the body's natural intelligence will, over time, kind of direct the stem cells to where to heal first. And so for me, I look at it as a way of enhancing the body's coherence, cellular coherence and intelligence, and ability to hold and maintain information in the form of light. And so our bodies are made up of light, sound, geometry, and ether, and that these are the four tenets that make up physicality. And so I think it's incredibly important to work with light, and there's so many different ways of doing this. But that is just one of the technologies that I like to support people with that I think really helps them line up their energy, kind of become even more focused and more vital. Like it gives people a lot of energy. It supports the immune system. And when you can get the physical body working online, and of course, that's with exercise, good sleep, diet, cleaning everything. It's
Gotcha.
all part of it that helps awaken and bring consciousness and remembrance back online. It's all connected.
And you feel like it's been pretty helpful for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was using it at a point in time when I had major adrenal fatigue and I had chronic pain from a whiplash injury. And I was grieving. And so my body was really sluggish and I was unmotivated. And within days of using it, my energy turned back online. And then over the weeks and months of using it, I started seeing my health improve in ways that I didn't expect. And so then I went down the rabbit hole of researching it so I could recommend it, reading the studies. And it's legit. A lot of people think, they might look it up and be like, huh, is this real? And it's like, yep, it is. Like, especially if you're sensitive and you just feel it. Some people, like, I had a colleague at work who's very energetically sensitive, and I put one in his hand and he jumped up. He was like, whoa, what is this thing?
Really? Really?
Yeah, he
Wow.
could like
Okay.
feel like this spark of energy.
Huh. Well, I'm definitely going to have to look into that further.
Yeah.
That
So, I
sounds
mean,
pretty
some people
fascinating.
notice a shift right away or in the first couple days, and some people it might take a week or a month or even more, but it's working at a very deep internal level of
Hmm.
regeneration because it's working with the stem cells.
So, what advice would you give someone who's beginning to experience more of their own like intuitive gifts, but doesn't really know how to navigate them?
Hmm. I would say give yourself time and a space to really tune into your body and find your yes and your no. So, listening
Hmm.
to your body's own wisdom of what's true for you. Listen for when you get the chills, when something's inherently true.
Hmm.
There's a space between the skin and the flesh that will tingle. So, when people get the tingles, that's a form of remembering. So, just knowing that when your body gives you this information and you can ask yourself, what is my yes and what is my no? Paying attention to those clues. And if it's too ambiguous and you're like, I don't know if I can trust my body, ask for another way until you
Nice.
find something that really works for you. And some people do dowsing. I personally don't use like, I've tried using a pendulum and it's just not my jam. I just ask and it's like, information just pops in.
Well, if you
But
don't, yeah,
yeah,
if you just get the information, you don't need a pendulum. So that works for
yeah.
you. That's
But I
great.
mean, I think there's so many different ways of reading
Yeah.
information. So I think that's a place to start is
Mhm.
finding your yes and your no. I think using tools like frequencies to help you clear your mind and tuning into the breath, using the breath as a tool, grounding your feet on the earth and feeling that earth connection can be really helpful as you're recalibrating and as your body's changing and your gifts are opening up. And then, of course, like eating as clean of a diet, pesticide free, chemical free as you can, processed free, sugar free as you can, you know.
So I have like these couple series of questions that I often ask toward the end of an interview.
Mhm.
Um, and so what you just said kind of leads us right into this next one. So how do you determine what healing or wellness practice to use when there's so many options out there? Like, how would someone be like, should I do Reiki? Should I do acupuncture? Should I do this, that, or the other? Like, do you have any advice there as to?
Well, I think people have different ways of getting their yeses and nos, kind of going back to the last point.
Mhm.
But I've studied human design a little bit, and if you haven't heard of that, it's a way of reading and knowing certain signs from your energy body. And you can actually look up, if you look up a free chart, you can see what kind of human design type you are and see what your yes is as far as like your way of getting your correct yes. And so, like, for me, I get my gut feeling yes. And so, like, when I know it's something that's right for me, I'll ask and it'll be just like choiceless. I don't have to think about it. Whereas there are other people whose energy body works differently and they might need an invitation from somebody first and then they'll know if it's correct for them. Or there are other people yeah, I'm not an expert in that modality. I've only kind of skimmed the surface, but
Mhm.
I think that's one way of finding like a tool. to see, how to make that decision for yourself.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one question you wish more people would ask about spirituality and the healing arts?
What's true for you? That would be my
Hmm.
question. Because rather than, ascribing to somebody else's modality or system or dogma or whatever it is, you know, I'm more interested in what's true for that person.
Nice.
Because I think I don't, I mean, we could get into like philosophy of like, is there an objective truth or whatever? But I do believe that every person lives in their own universe. And, what's true for somebody in any moment in time can only be known by that person. And how to be in the world. So I like really, I want to empower people to know themselves and to ask that question, is this true for me? Rather
Nice.
than using an outside source.
Nice. Um, so are there any highlights or summary points that you might want to like drive home, circle back around and hit, or if we haven't hit it at all, anything that you'd like to bring up that maybe we haven't spoken of, or we just
Um, yeah, I just want to kind of speak to those people out there who are sensitive, intuitive, who know things that they can't speak about, or who've always known that something might be off or that they don't feel like they can talk about what they're experiencing. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who have these anomalous symptoms or experiences or perceptions, and they go to their doctor and they're prescribed something or given some kind of really abstract diagnosis of exclusion and kind of dismissed for their experience. And I just want those people to know that your experience is valid and that there are many of us out there who can talk this language in energy terms, that there's so much more out there that as humans from a biomedical standpoint we don't know or understand. And I think as especially in the next couple decades with all of these, consciousness changing, with people remembering more of who they are, with people coming out of hiding, you know, sharing their story, sharing their experience, and being fearless with that. I think more and more people are going to connect and wake up and starting to integrate the validity of this experience into, the mainstream even more. So I just want to encourage those people out there to speak up and share your stories and your experience, and that you're not alone.
perfectly said. Thank you so very much. And so you're now doing retreats. I think the last time I talked to you, you were getting back from Hawaii. It's a wonderful place to offer retreats. Um, so you're doing group sessions, and I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. So if you could tell us how to do that, that would be fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
My website is melanieadrianna.com, and I list all my retreats and workshops on there. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you can get updates. I'm in Virginia. And let's see, retreat wise, next year I'm going to be leading a group, probably of women to Japan around March, cherry blossom season. I'm still figuring out the dates for that, depending on where exactly we're going to be watching the cherry blossoms. And so I'm going to be connecting with dragon and water dragon temples and going to different onsen, the bathhouses, to connect with the waters and the information there. And then following that, on Mother's Day, May 9th through May 13th, I'm leading, co facilitating with my dear friend Tiare Loom on Oahu, a group of women supporting women in reconnecting to the womb space and the relationship to the mother, to the land, to the ancestors, and releasing grief and loss from that space. So connecting to the ancient rocks of the island. And we will be on Turtle Bay on the North Shore for Mother's Day. So if you want to be a part of that experience, or if you're a mother daughter, come and reach out to me. And I'm happy always to set up a conversation to hear your story and to learn more about you and to support you.
And I want people to know that your work is also, you can reach you through remote work. You don't have to actually live near or in Virginia or any of the actual locations that you are physically, correct?
Correct. Yeah. The
So
majority of my work is remote.
perfect.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, Melanie, so much for joining us.
Thank you
And
so much, Lauren. This was so much fun.
yeah, it's really, really cool. You do some neat stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So do you.
Great. Thank
I'm
you.
really grateful to be here.
Yeah. Cool. And so that's that.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye for now.